Hello my quilting friends! Leah Day here with a new Sit Down Quilting Sunday video. Today I want to stitch out 3 simple skill building designs. Say that 3 times fast. So I'm just really interested in playing with some very easy designs. Some designs that are going to help you build skill, whether it's moving the quilt under the machine like with the sit down long arm, or it's moving the quilt on a frame like with a frame mounted long arm. So no matter which way you're stitching it, these are 3 excellent designs for building skills with machine quilting. So let's get started. So our first easy long arm quilting design is Wiggly You Shapes. And so basically this is just an up and down wiggle. And notice that I speed up and slow down as I'm stitching this. I kind of speed up on the straight lines and then I slow down a bit as I turn the corner. I'm also stitching on a marked line here. If I was stitching this freehand, meaning without marks, then of course I would probably be quilting a little bit faster. I'm also feeling kind of lazy. I left the ruler foot on my machine, so this is a little bit harder to see. So that's another reason why I'm stitching just a little bit slower. This is usually a design I just fly through, and it's so easy. So you can take Wiggly You Shapes and stitch it in all different sorts of places. Here I'm quilting it into this triangle shape. You know, you could expand it so that the lines are bigger and the U shapes are larger, and you could just do one big wiggly U across the whole space. That would have been fine too. There's really no right or wrong way of doing it. I have stitched a design where I crossed Wiggly U Shapes over itself. I call that Wiggly Pasta. So you can definitely check out that other tutorial and check out that design. So you can see just how fast and easy this fills. It's getting really tiny here as I come right up into that center point. But that is our first easy long arm quilting design, Wiggly U Shapes. So we learned Wiggly U Shapes, and now for our second easy design, and that is Stippling. Stippling is such an awesome design, and it's definitely one that you want to have in your quilting toolbox. So basically you take those Wiggly U shapes that we were doing before, and you make it a little bit more complicated with more bends and wiggles, and you just kind of randomize the design while also stitching a row through your quilt. So this is of course a pre-planned cheater cloth panel, but this is exactly how I would quilt this even if I was quilting without the design marked. Basically in a row across the block around, you know, all of these complicated things. You know, I'm kind of quilting around this basket block. So with stippling, you're just focusing on forming smooth curving shapes. You want to try to avoid, you know, stops and jags and sharp angles. Whenever you stop quilting, stop with your needle in the down position, shift things around with your hands. Make sure that you're going to be comfortable quilting for a good little while, so that way you can get started and just keep on going, keep on chugging. I find that it's kind of hard to stop and start with stippling because everything's curvy. There's not really a good place to stop and start, unless of course you run up against a ditch. So right here, this is the outline of the basket handle, so I can travel stitch along it and then return to the design. So one place to stop might be like the curves, the inside curves. Gonna stop and wiggle things around, make sure the quilt's comfortable, you know, pull it up if it's sitting on your lap and dragging against you. And then reposition your hands and get started again. Notice how I take just a few slow stitches to start, then I bring it up to full speed. I also slow down quite a bit whenever I'm travel stitching over previous line of stitching. And then I have kind of my regular speed, and I'm just operating the foot pedal here. I'm just pressing lightly with my foot on the foot pedal. I don't have a stitch regulator on this machine. So that's just my foot operating, just trying to keep my movement with my hands all nicely in sync. So that is our second design, Stippling. Really easy, fun design. Definitely something you want to know how to quilt on your long arm. So now let's meet our last easy long arm design. It's Loopy L Shapes. This simple loopy line is really easy to quilt, especially in narrow areas like your sashing. It's a great design to kind of tuck away in all of those little nooks and crannies of your quilt and fill in those spaces really quickly. So you just swirl up, form that loop, nice even curve, and come back down. So if you were able to quilt Wiggly You Shapes and Stippling, then Loopy Line is going to be just as easy. And if those designs were a struggle, then this one might actually be easier because this is going to feel like cursive writing. It's going to feel like writing cursive L's. And that's one of those things that might help you be able to quilt it easier. Sometimes whenever you've drawn or written a shape many times, it's going to feel much easier to quilt it. So actually, technically this is kind of two designs in one because I'm going to go straight into this cursive writing in this lower area of the block. You can see how I've got this cute little loopy heart shape, and then I've also designed it to say love. So I'm just going to quilt along this, and this is actually the direction that feels more natural to me, so I know I'm going to quilt it better. So I'm going to start with the outermost heart shape first and bounce around it, coming around. And I have these lines that are printed and I'm trying to stay on them, which is why I'm quilting just a little bit slower than I would otherwise. And you know, if I overshoot it or undershoot it, I don't care. I think it's still going to look great both on the front and the back of the quilt. So now let's go into our love. Cursive writing is so easy and it's such a fun way to add really nice messages on your quilt. You know, if you're making a quilt for a baby or a loved one, you could write, you know, a message to them, something that you want to say so that generations from now, they're going to know that you are a loving, sweet person. You know, I think that that is such an awesome way to fill your quilts with a special message. So here I'm coming around for the V. Definitely give this a try and think about, you know, the words that you'd like to add to your quilt. Maybe write it out a few times full size. Just draw those letters out and see what they look like. And then if you're still a little unsure of it, definitely mark it on your quilt. That'll help you with spacing, making sure that the letters and words are nicely spaced. Like if you want things to run symmetrically through a quilt or you want it to fill in an area completely, I would definitely advise marking it just because that will make that whole thing much easier. And it'll also make it easier so you don't have to worry about accidentally missing a word. Like, I am the kind of person that would write a message and then like leave out a word right in the center. So there we go. Loopy line and, of course, cursive writing. Two great designs to quilt in your quilts. So that's it for this video. I really enjoyed sharing these three super simple designs and quilting them out on the Building Blocks cheater cloth panel. I just happened to have this panel laying around and decided to baste it up with some minky fabric on the back because I'm a minky junkie these days, and I think it's going to make a really cute baby quilt. Now, if you'd like to find this panel and be able to practice many different designs over many different quilt blocks with me, you can check it out on Spoonflower, and I'll provide a link below this video. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the machine that I'm using in these videos, you can learn more about it at leahday.com/grace. And if you call Grace Company and you live within the United States and you say, Leah Day told you to say, hello, my quilting friends, then you can get a special discount on anything that you order from Grace Company. So definitely check that out and learn more about this machine I'm using in this series. If you have any suggestions or questions about this video, please post in the comments below. I really want to help you learn more about machine quilting, and I love making new videos just for you. So that's it for this video. I can't wait to show you something new coming up next week. Until next time, let's go quilt.